Begin with breaking news this hour. A new wave of Israeli airstrikes in Gaza has killed 7 people. Air raid sirens are also sounding in southern Israel. 17 Palestinians have now been killed since Tuesday, when Israel killed a senior commander of the armed group Islamic Jihad. Fighters in Gaza have responded by firing around 220 rockets towards Israel. Egypt and other international officials are working to mediate a ceasefire between Israel, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad. Harry.
For now at least, this is the woman taking the helm of Bolivia, a country she says is emerging from one of its darkest episodes. In front of a half-empty chamber, the Deputy Senate leader, Janine Áñez, used a constitutional clause to take control of the assembly, meaning she was then able to elevate herself to the position of interim president. The benches where Evo Morales' leftist supporters normally sit lay bare, as many boycotted the session, meaning a quorum for the appointment wasn't reached. But with the endorsement of the Constitutional Court, Áñez donned the presidential sash to address crowds. She's vowed to organise fresh elections as soon as possible, with a view to ending the civil unrest which has rocked Bolivia since Morales controversially won last month's presidential vote.
These are live pictures from the U.S., from Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., where the hearing is set to begin shortly. After more than a month of closed-door testimony, the hearing is just minutes from being broadcast live around the world. It centers around a phone call between President Trump and Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky in July. The first witnesses up are 2 veteran diplomats, acting U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine William Taylor and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent. Taylor has said in closed-door testimony he had what he calls a clear understanding that Trump wanted to pressure Ukraine into investigating his political rival Joe Biden in exchange for continuing military aid to Ukraine. Kent testified that Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, pushed for the removal of the former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who will testify on Friday.
SAA is headed for more turbulent times, and employees plan to down tools over its planned restructuring and retrenchments. Now, the struggling airline received no strike notifications, or did receive strike notifications from the National Union of Metal Workers and the South African Cabin Crew Association.
This is going to be a strike that has about 3,000 members, and what they say is that they're going to be affected, well, the employees that will be affected rather include the cabin crew, check-in, ticket sales, head office, technical staff and ground staff. So basically, if you have travel arrangements through SAA this coming Friday, perhaps for the weekend, you might want to cancel them or look for alternative flying methods.
یعنی اینطوری بعد شدید بود که به شیشه‌های خانه کلش از یک طرف کلش از یک سر میده شد. مردم بیشتر مردم زد به توتای شیشه از بین رفتن. دیدیم 4 طرف مردم افتاده بود از یک طرف.
و همه جانبه شرکای بین‌المللی دستگیر گردیده.
This is what the eastern town of Pibor in South Sudan looks like now. Homes and schools nearly fully submerged. People trying to salvage what they can and mourn what they can't. It's the aftermath of weeks of heavy rains since October.
I'm a school headmaster, but my school has been drowned by the floods. It rained so much that people saw the river rising into their houses. They ran to schools, but even the schools were submerged. And it was a good agricultural season. We had harvested our crops, but floods destroyed even those.
George says he had to leave Pibor and come to South Sudan's capital, Juba, for refuge. Back home, very little has been spared by the floodwaters. People here say it's the worst they've experienced in more than 20 years.
A rowdy protest is unfolding in the city over the shooting death of an Aboriginal teenager.
As Jane, protesters have started smearing paint all over the columns and walls here at Parliament House. Red paint can be seen on the columns, the walls. Hundreds of people descended on the steps here about an hour ago. A crowd of several hundred now spilling onto North Terrace, and they're certainly making their presence felt. They're protesting over the death of an Indigenous teenager, Kumanjari Walker, who was shot dead by police in the Northern Territory on Saturday night. They say the 18-year-old was innocent and claim his death was kept from his family for almost 24 hours.
Okay, first, it was former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick. Now we have yet another sign of the growing anxiety among some Democrats that the massive field of candidates already out there in the race are not going to be able to unseat President Trump.
As I say, never say never. And I will certainly tell you I'm under enormous pressure from many people to think about it.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at that, Shannon, because I'm just wondering who these many people are. Are they even Democrats? Because it seems to me the people who would be most excited to see Hillary Clinton get into the race and get the nomination would actually be Republicans, because she's proved before she's a terrible candidate, and I'm sure she'd be very happy to prove that again.
People in Harare were willing to wait for hours outside banks and ATMs to get their hands on the new Zimbabwean currency. $2 and $5 notes were issued, but a strict withdrawal limit of $300 a week means those who queued could only walk away with the equivalent of $19 US. Zimbabwe is in a financial and humanitarian crisis. In September, inflation hit 300%. A loaf of bread can cost a few weeks' pension. Some people have stopped taking their HIV medicine because they cannot afford the meals that must accompany it. The current crisis dates back to 2009. Ravaged by hyperinflation, the country abandoned the Zimbabwe dollar. It was replaced by foreign currencies, including the US dollar and the South African rand. But those notes dried up in 2015, leading to cash shortages.
A far-right group in the northern Greek village of Theavata held a pork and alcohol barbecue protest outside a camp full of Muslim asylum seekers. The United Macedonians movement said it was protesting against the government's plans to transfer some 20,000 migrants to mainland northern Greece from overcrowded refugee camps in the Aegean Islands.
Είμαστε εδώ σήμερα στο barbecue party για να στείλουμε ένα συμβολικό μήνυμα σε όλες τις κατευθύνσεις ότι η Ελλάδα δεν θα χάσει την πολιτισμική της κουλτούρα σε όσο βάθος χρόνου και αν περάσει και θα παραμείνει η Ελλάδα. Η Ευρώπη θα παραμείνει Ευρώπη και ο ανθρωπισμός πλέον πρέπει να είναι για όλους. Όχι μόνο επιλεκτικός για κάποιους ανθρώπους που τους έχουν εκμεταλλευτεί κάποιοι και τους έχουν κάνει μπίζνα, αλλά ο ανθρωπισμός πρέπει να είναι για όλους και ειδικά για τους ντόπιους πληθυσμούς της κάθε χώρας.